person who lies down at night and finds their mind still running, not anxious, just working, has never known what it means to truly stop. They believe they are tired because of the decades. The body rests, but the mind has been running a shift that was never scheduled, never paid, never acknowledged. It runs in the car, in the shower, at 3 in the morning, narrating, planning, solving problems that do not yet exist. They have never once known the silence other people seem to carry, the ability to simply sit and not be working on something. For them, stillness is just thinking with the lights off. You are thinking, this is focus. It is not focus, it is a debt. The exhaustion they carry is not laziness. It is the fatigue of a mind that was never given an off switch, and it has been billing them quietly for every hour it refuses to stop. The real question is not why they cannot rest. It is what they are afraid will find them in the silence if they finally do. This pattern does not begin in adulthood. It begins in childhood, in the child who learned that their value was attached to their utility. Not the child who was praised for existing, but the child who was praised for producing. The good grade, the helpful answer, the early maturity. The child who noticed, perhaps without language for it, that quietness in a parent meant danger, and that being useful, being alert, being one step ahead, made the atmosphere more stable. The mind learned to run because stopping meant exposure to something it could not control. The child did not choose this. The nervous system made a calculation. Motion is safer than rest. By adulthood, that calculation has become invisible. It feels like personality. It feels like who they are. There is another origin, equally common. The child who lived in an environment where emotional events were never named, where the adults moved past conflict without acknowledging it, where tension hung in rooms and was never addressed. That child learns to monitor, to track, to run simulations of what might happen next so they are not surprised. The mind becomes a prediction engine not because the world rewards it, but because unpredictability once cost too much. Decades later, the engine still runs. It has not been told the war is over. You thought of someone else just now. That is the protection working. In practice, this looks specific. The person drives home from work and cannot remember the route they took because they were rehearsing a conversation that may never happen. They shower and realize they have been silently arguing with a colleague for 12 minutes. They lie down and the mind moves to tomorrow's problem, then next year's problem, then a problem from 2019 that has already resolved but never been properly reviewed. They do not experience this as anxiety. That is what makes it so difficult to address. Anxiety would be legible. Anxiety would show up on a form, in a therapy session, in a conversation with a friend. This is subtler. This is the mind doing what it has always done, what it was shaped to do, what it believes is necessary for survival. The intelligent person does not escape this pattern. They dress it differently. They have better language for why they are not doing the thing. The vocabulary of psychology has given them a sophisticated set of reasons to remain exactly where they are. They say they are processing. They say they need more information. They say they are being thoughtful. What they are doing is the same thing anyone else would do. They are not moving. The intelligence is in the service of the stillness. The high achiever's version is perhaps the most socially rewarded. The person who builds companies, manages teams, completes advanced degrees, all while the mind runs its third shift. They are validated externally for exactly the behavior that is destroying them internally. The culture calls it drive. It calls it ambition. It does not ask what the person would do if no one were watching, if no one were grading, if the achievement were removed. The high achiever often does not know the answer to that question. They have never been still long enough to find out. Then there is the person who has read about this pattern, who has encountered the concept, who can name it, who can describe the mechanism to friends at dinner. They believe this knowledge is progress. It is not progress. It is a more sophisticated form of the same imprisonment. They use the vocabulary to explain why they are not changing yet. They are aware of the pattern, they say, and awareness takes time. What they are doing is substituting recognition for transformation. The mechanism has adapted. It has learned to wear the language of healing. I do not have this pattern. I have only watched it. What I find remarkable is how little knowing that changes anything for the person who does. The cost accumulates in ways that do not announce themselves. The body begins to signal first. the sleep that does not restore, the digestion that becomes unpredictable, the tension that lives in the jaw, the shoulders, the hands. The person attributes these to age, to stress, to the demands of their particular life. They do not trace them back to the mind that has been running for 30 years without a break. The deeper cost is relational. The person is present in conversation, but not available. Their interlocutor senses this, without being able to name it. The partner who says, "Where did you just go?" and is told, "Nowhere, I am listening." The friend who shares something vulnerable and receives in return a solution rather than a witness. The mind that cannot stop working on problems treats relationships as problems to be solved. It does not know how to be with, it only knows how to do for. Over years, this creates a particular loneliness. The person is surrounded by people who do not feel truly connected to them, and they do not understand why. They have been working so hard, the identity cost arrives later. The person who has defined themselves by their mental motion cannot imagine who they would be without it. They have never met the self that exists in stillness. They are afraid this self will be empty. Or worse, they are afraid this self will be someone they do not like. Someone who has been buried under decades of productive distraction. The mind keeps running partly because it is afraid of what it will find if it stops. The real question is not why they cannot rest. It is what they are afraid will find them in the silence if they finally do. There is a moment that comes for some, usually in the middle years, when the cost becomes visible all at once. The body fails in some minor way that does not resolve. The relationship ends, and the reason given is some version of, "You were never really here." The achievement arrives and brings no relief, only the next target. In that moment, they understand that the mind has been billing them for every hour it refused to stop, and the debt has come due. They see that they have traded their life for a simulation of living, and they cannot get the years back. Awareness at this point rarely dissolves the pattern. The mechanism is too old, too reinforced, too intertwined with survival itself. What usually happens is that the person becomes a more articulate prisoner. They can describe the cell perfectly. They cannot leave it. The rare exception occurs when something external forces a stop. Serious illness, loss that cannot be processed through, a period of enforced isolation where the usual distractions are removed. In that space, without the option of motion, the mind finally meets what it has been running from. Sometimes this is survivable, sometimes it is not. The rarity of genuine change is not because people lack will, it is because the pattern was never chosen. And what is not chosen is not easily unchosen. For most, the pattern continues with modifications. They learn better sleep hygiene and apply it while the mind runs in the dark. They take up meditation and find themselves planning dinner during the breath count. They read about presence and are present in the reading, absent in the living. The mechanism adapts to every intervention because the core has never been addressed. The belief, held below language, that rest is exposure, that stillness is danger, that the self in motion is the only self-worth being. What I find genuinely interesting from outside the human frame is that this pattern persists despite offering no genuine advantage. The mind that runs all night does not solve more problems than the mind that sleeps. The person rehearsing conversations does not have better conversations than the person who does not. The prediction engine is wrong as often as it is right, and the cost of its operation exceeds any benefit it delivers. Yet it continues. Not because it works, because it is known, because the familiar motion is preferable to the unknown stillness, because the debt, finally, has become the identity, and the person no longer knows how to be anyone who is not paying it.